Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of History in Flames. My name is Michael Smith, and today, in this presentation, we're going to explore the myth and reality of the Minutemen, who they were, how they performed in the opening stages of the American Revolution, and how later generations turned them into one of America's most enduring national symbols. Now, before we get started, first let's acknowledge the elephant in the room. For one, I'm not normally wearing my suit and being professional. It's been a bit of a busy couple of days, so I couldn't put my suit on. So I figured the Boston jersey was more than fitting when we talk about the Minutemen and our American Revolution. A little tongue in cheek, but here we go. So moving on. Now, when most people picture the Minutemen, they imagine disciplined citizen soldiers rushing from their homes to defend their liberty at a moment's notice. It's a powerful image, one that appears in monuments and in textbooks, popular memory, songs, and even poems, which we'll get to here in a little bit. So, but as historians show, the historical reality was far more complicated. The Minutemen played an important role, but their performance, training, and reliability were not as uniform or as legendary as later narrative suggests. Militia origins. To understand the Minutemen, we start with the English and Puritan militia tradition. When most people think of militia, they don't really think of Puritans, but we'll get there too. The New England communities expected men to own arms, to attend musters or meetings, and to defend their own town and their neighbors when needed. But as Fred Anderson shows, the colonial militia drills were often uneven, and British officers during the 7 Years' War frequently complained about provisional discipline, meaning it's just a bunch of good old boys hanging out together and not really a uniformed, well-trained army or militia. So, still, the militia service became became a central part of the community's identity long before the first shots of 1775. Now, the rise of the Minutemen, everything changed with the Coercive Acts of 1774. The Massachusetts Provincial Congress ordered the formation of a special rapid response units known as the Minutemen. These units drilled more frequently and pledged to mobilize instantly when an alarm was raised. David Hackett Fischer shows that the alarm network across Middlesex County was one of the most sophisticated in the 18th century. The structure prepared them for what happened later on April 19, 1775. Hardly a man is now alive who remembers that famous day and year. Anyway, so Lexington and Concord. At Lexington and Concord, the Minutemen and other militia units responded rapidly and fought in a series of decentralized engagements, meaning they were in little skirmishes all over the place. Local companies used the terrain to their advantage, firing from behind trees and walls and fences. Robert Gross explains that the strong community ties and a covenantal culture helped motivate these fighters, and plus, they were defending their homes. But the battle was not a perfectly coordinated event. We often see in art it was fragmented, local, and improvised, and often reactionary. Still, these early engagements became the foundation of the Minutemen legend. Historiography. Historians disagree on the militia's effectiveness. For example, for John Shea, he emphasizes the political role in mobilizing communities. For Charles Royster, he highlights the emotional and communal motivations behind the militia action. Don Higginbotham stresses the military limitations, especially outside local defense. And we're going to wrap up with Fred Anderson, who shows how earlier wartime experience shaped their strengths and their weaknesses. Together, these interpretations show a force that was symbolically powerful, but militarily inconsistent. Washington's view. George Washington worked with the militia units throughout the war. His letters show both the appreciation for the enthusiasm and the frustration for the short enlistments and the lack of discipline. Washington wrote that the militia forces often come and go when they please, making long-term campaigns nearly impossible, especially during harvest season. He quickly concluded that the professional Continental Army was essential to winning the revolution, with the militia serving in support roles but not as the main force. Memory and myth-making. So how did the Minutemen become national heroes? Most of the legend was built after the war. In the 19th century, Americans, especially during the rise of nationalism, looked back to the Revolution for unifying symbols. Michael Kamen explains how public monuments, speeches, and Longfellow's poem, Paul Revere's Ride, and local commemorations transformed the Minutemen into icons of liberty, courage, and divine favor. The myth became just as important as the history itself. For my primary sources, much of what we know about Minutemen comes from the following. From town muster rolls, provincial records, sermons by Mayhew and West, British accounts of fighting, and Washington's own correspondence. These documents reveal both heroism and the limitations of the militia-style system, allowing us to separate memory from reality. In conclusion, the Minutemen were not just flawless warriors, but they were committed citizens shaped by community, covenant theology, and a belief in defending their rights. These actions at Lexington and Concord were crucial in igniting the revolution, but their overall performance varied widely depending on their training, their age, and their communities. The legend that developed later reflects how American ideals, ordinary people, standing firm in the face of danger, ready to defend liberty when history calls, became the basis of what it meant to be an American. For my references, here they are. Here's just a few. Here we're going to Ignisher, Anderson, Fisher, Gross, Higginbotham, and the others. This is where I got my information from. So if you'd like, have a look, go through and see what you like, and let me know. Again, apologize for the wait, and apologize for being winged a little bit, but enjoy, and I'd love to have in this class, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.